Hello, 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 and welcome back once again to another Free Report Friday session with your host, none other than not Future Cam Phil over here at jitcadcam. This week, once again, as you guys know, on Fridays, we like to do a free session, get you guys to put those questions and problems you guys have been having throughout the week that we can help answer them or possibly even evaluate your workflow and better ways to go about it. Now, I will warn you guys this week, we're going to cut this a little short. So we're only going to do this for about an hour and we're going to test that out. But we're also on this end, I just want to give you guys fair warning. We are going to be on the road for basically the next couple of months. So this will be our second to last free support Friday unless something changes. So mark your calendars for any of you out there. So with that, I'm going to open this up at any time. If you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. We also have a support email down below. Feel free to use that to put in a request if you guys need any help. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm actually going to start everything off this with something different, right? So normally we talk about CAM, we dive deep into CAM. Well, this question in itself came from one of my very well-known customers, but they are in the process of what would be referred to as a family of parts, or in their case, basically we need to work with configurations. However, they are wanting to machine based on certain configuration setups. So I'm going to start today off by one, showing you guys a little bit about configurations, and then two, how we can actually speed up our CAM workflow if you're somebody doing something that is a family of parts or possibly even doing production type work where things minor change, right? So very first thing is we're in the design workspace. As you guys know, inside of Fusion, I'm going to draw one part. I'm not going to draw an assembly. Configurations work for both. Remember to use components when using assemblies. But I always love the example in this case of what would be referred to as a bushing, right? As you guys are seeing me do here, I'm actually going to create my center line. And for any of you that are going to be at our Haas training, you guys are going to get tortured with rectangles all week long while we conduct that. But as you can see, I've quickly sketched my rectangle. I am going to do a horizontal vertical over in this corner. And then from that, let's go ahead and throw some dimensions on this, right? So now how you dimension this is very important when we talk about our configurations. So I'm actually going to say this is 3 inches long. Maybe we're going to work with a 1/4 inch shoulder. Now our outside diameter in this case, we're going to pull that off of our center line. Maybe we're going to go 3-inch diameter, let's go 1-inch through hole. And then lastly, we are going to need to give it an OD on that location. So as you guys can see, I've now quickly dimensioned out this bushing. And with that information, I'm going to now switch gears and revolve that to create a solid model. So configurations at first can be a little intimidating. However, you're doing nothing more than basically building input values for your parameters. Now, if you don't know where parameters are in this case, go to the change parameter area. Everything that you guys just saw me do is recorded here and is an area where I could manually override at any time, right? So again, we did what would be the part length. I'm going to go ahead and plug in 2 inches. And as you can see, it shortens up my bushing. Now, I don't want to remember on my end every single size that I input in. I'm also now noticing my big fat head is partially in the way in this area. But as you can see is, let's talk family of parts. It's a bushing, shoulder bushing. It could add a few features, remove a few features, or change its size. Well, if we go to our configuration area, as you're going to see is we could set up our different configurations. And then we could add our properties as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in a parameter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to snag the part length here real quick. And as you can see, D1, which is 2 inches currently, is now something I can control based on a configuration. So let's keep it simple. So let's add a second configuration and make this a 3-inch version. Or actually, let's go 2.5. I like that. And then add a third configuration, which might be 3 or 3.5 in this case. Now, as you guys can see is by double clicking, I can jump back and forth across these. But where does this really apply, right? So because we're model driving our tools in most cases, if we switched over to manufacture and did a setup here, go ahead and flip my Z the other way, Anybody that knows me, I like the fixed size cylinder. Again, we can round up our material at any time. But if I was to apply a few tool paths to this, give me a sec here to grab some tools. Got our right-handed tool here for facing. Hit this with an OD rough, and then possibly an OD finish. As you guys can see, I've generated my tool paths to make this part. But the value of configurations or family of parts is the fact that when I switch back to my design, I could easily swap out to a different configuration size. And again, jumping back to manufacturer, everything has automatically updated. So whether you're going to do it for one item or 1,000 items, see here very simply, we have that complete ability to be able to use configurations to make simple parts even quicker. Now, you get very complex with this. And I do want to remind everybody, if you guys have any questions at any time, feel free to throw them in the chat. But if we go back into our configuration side, or in this case, let's say we're going to add a hole. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a cross hole on this. And let's say that hole is going to be, well, we got to give it a diameter somewhere. There it is. Say it's a 125 hole, right? As you can see, I've now made my 125 hole. I could set a distance, of course. I could go through all, however you want to set it up inside of your CAM solution. But with that, let me go back to that hole command. You have the ability, again, is to adjust this in your configurations, right? So once we go back to the configure menu, we could actually add additional parameters. What I'm going to do is hit FX again. You have that hole. Maybe the hole size is now something that's going to update based on part length. And maybe this time we're looking at a 250 hole and then a 375 hole. And just like that, jumping between your configurations has automatically now updated that hole based on that information, right? So again, the great thing about this is if you're building out some CAD work that does replicate or does repeat, you have full control over being able to set up any of those normal parameters, but to duplicate it across your part. So again, if you guys have any questions, I didn't have a ton to come up with this week, but by using configurations, I hope this helps you guys a lot when it comes to actually setting up a part, especially if you're redrawing it anyways, or you're doing that family of part type of scenario. Now, a few more pointers here while we wait for the questions to come in is I would highly recommend starting to label things inside of the software. So as you guys know, this is dimension 1, this is dimension 2. If we wanted to get much more fancy with our parameters, the more neat and organized you get, the better everything is going to turn out at the end of the day, right? So this could be part length. Again, you could actually have your OD diameter or shoulder thickness. Our OD. This is our 1 inch was our through hole. And then lastly, it was the pushing diameter, right? So again, by organizing these parameters much more, giving them fancier names, it makes it much easier when we look at doing our actual configuration tables so that we know, one, what is that configuration and what is changing and updating when we toggle through. Again, it doesn't matter how much you do. As you can see, of course, we would have to change out our drill bit size based on that information. But right here inside the software, we're very quickly and easily updating our model, updating our CAM toolpaths to match. Now, this was something I was curious about because there is a way, let's say, for example, we're drilling this hole, right? I'm going to go ahead and grab some type of drill from somewhere, hopefully. There we go. We have our spot drill. So given we were doing our spot drill here, and for those of you that don't know, we could actually do select this face, and then we could do a 2 chamfer diameter or 2 chamfer width. So let's say I always want to break that edge by 20, right? What you're noticing here is it's automatically defining chamfer based on the hole geometry. So again, is if we jumped back to configurations, switched out to a completely different configuration. Now we're going to that smaller hole size. We go into manufacture, regenerate. Our spot drill has automatically updated. Now, where my curiosity comes in is if you know on the design side in this case, what that diameter dimension was. So as you're seeing is that diameter is triggered by D7, is can we update a drill bit automatically based on that D7? I don't personally know right now. I think we're all going to learn at this point. So again, we're going to go in, we're going to do our drilling orientation, and then we'll flip that in, pick that same geometry. And in this case, we could filter by a hole size if you wanted to auto select, but I'm more curious as to whether or not I can create a drill bit that will reference, in this case, a diameter from the other side. So again, our drill diameter, as you're seeing, is it doesn't look like I can. Nope, I don't think we're going to be able to do it. There's not a way to reference that parameter specifically. Let's go ahead and reset that all back to defaults. Yep. So what I was hoping for, if you guys didn't know, there's ways to actually cross-reference things inside of Fusion. Looking for a data field here where we can edit an expression, but you can actually look and see when we did all of our dimensions here, they're automatically pulled from the model, and you can reference those straight to your toolpath as well. So again, D7 was my hole diameter, which comes through as a reference parameter, but I can't use a parameter on the drill specifically. So that is one thing that may help you guys out, and it may not at the end of the day. So again, another cool thing with configurations that some people don't really know is the fact that when you're using configurations, right, is once we generate whatever it is that we want based on that configuration, you can derive out those models, or you can export those models, again, getting them linked if you wanted to keep updates and push things downstream. So I see quite a few people coming and going. Guys, if you have questions at any time, feel free to throw them in chat. We're here for you guys. Again, just a reminder, we're going to wrap this up here at the top of the hour. Let's see what other fun parts I can come up with. Get back into my fun YouTube content. I know last week's could be a theory or a fun time. Actually, I had a pretty good question, and I wanted to see if Autodesk possibly ever fixed it. And I'm trying to think if this part's going to do it or not. Actually, this part will work. We're going to modify this part here real quick for you guys. And we're going to go ahead and test the good old-fashioned 3D adaptive, where we have stock that is being recognized on the flip when it should not be. So again, we're going to go ahead and do our setup as we've always done. 3D adaptive clearing. Get us a tool here. And with that tool, let's go ahead and get our toolpath all set up. Now, some of you are probably questioning my tool holder choice right here. Keep in mind, Wednesday, we did a Workflow Wednesday video showing you guys how to import solid models of tool holders. And yes, this tool holder does not work necessarily, but all I'm looking for is to see if continuous rest machine is going to give us what we want when we flip something like this over, right? Is it going to recognize what's already been done on this part? And for you guys at home, I'm just using some hotkeys. Control D to duplicate, and then I'm dragging and dropping and flipping that back over to see what is recognized on the back side. So let's double verify. And it looks like there is still a bug at this point. So again, as you guys are seeing, is we've already cut out that slot, but going back the other way for some reason, we're still machining out that area as if there is material. So again, this is something that will, based on how you program in Fusion, we've always wondered, is there a way to get it to avoid those areas? But with 3D adaptive clearing, Autodesk, if you guys are watching, there is still the issue with 3D adaptive clearing where it's trying to go in somewhere that we've already machined back the other way, right? So presumably, we should expect it to do a little bit down here at the bottom, but that's not the case when we get to flipping this over because we're creating a lot of ghost paths that aren't necessarily needed, right? So again, let's go back in, see what we got. We're going to change that back to 20. Maybe we could fix it by reducing air cutting, and I don't think it's going to happen. So, oh, got a little better scenario here. It looks like we're now avoiding doing all of that from the top down, and we're still going around the corners. But again, some reason, maybe it's just me, or maybe it's the way the software calculates, is Should probably have a little nicer path here. And we should also not be touching the outside corners, which I think we can very simply by giving it just a hair more material to ignore than what is there. Not quite. We did get a little better result. Maybe we'll up that just a little bit more. Now, I did see a very creative approach to what you guys are seeing me do here. And this is one I didn't know. You guys let me know in the comments or in chat if you knew this. Is somebody mentioned using ignore stock less than, but setting it with that tolerance added on, right? So if I actually already roughed this part out one way with 20, and I go back the other way with 24, that is a very quick and easy way to avoid double machine areas. Now, in this case, I don't see it necessarily working out the best. They also pointed out another way that I liked, which was using tolerance settings on 3D paths, attainment boundaries. So again, you guys can see, feeding back the other way, we are getting a little bit more than we should because we've already machined around that cusp the first way down. So going back the other way, we are still getting some type of additional passes that we should not have, right? Now, if we were to do this with 3D pocket clearing, let's shift gears here real quick. I'm going to have to reorder some. Let's get adaptive out of the way, and let's just regenerate pocket going back the other way. Give her a few seconds, and as you guys can see, other than a big old helix here, which we might have to investigate to make sure everything's still set right, from previous, we have reduced air cutting on. Now, why we're going all the way down like that makes no sense on my side. There we go. But again, as you're seeing the reduced air, for some reason, continuing all the way down past the part as if there's a problem with how it recognizes stock. Cool. If you guys have any questions, I see more of you popping in here. Feel free to throw those questions in chat at any time. I'm going to go ahead and check the ticket system, make sure that no tickets have come through at this moment. All right. Looks like my post just got approved as well on Fusion 60 Cam users. So if you guys on Facebook just got in here, feel free to ask questions at any time on anything you would like to see. You're more than welcome to use chat to do. Go ahead and get some things moved around here. I'm getting some really good news for those of you guys that are down in the South. We do have an amazing event coming up. I guess it's the other way for me to put it. And we just got confirmation due to the amount of people already registered. We're already looking at almost 60 registrants for these days. Is we are actually going to do a back-to-back week in this scenario. So we have May 5th, 6th, and 7th. And then with that, I believe, let me pull up my calendar here real quick. We're also going to now do the 12th, 13th, and 14th, all at the Haas HFO right outside of Houston in Texas. So I see Deep Thinker. Deep Thinker, what's going on? So if you do a finishing pass on setup, will it possible? We can go ahead and give it a try. Let me get back to my screen here. So again, we did our roughing this way. And what Deep Thinker is requesting is, what if we did a cleanup path all the way around? So let's go ahead and throw a cleanup path on this. And I'm going to re-drag and drop because I failed to activate things properly. And then let's go back to adaptive clearing just because, again, I'm just as curious as most people as to what is going to happen. And it looks like adaptive clearing, we're missing a pocket because I did 2D adaptive clearing. So yours truly is going to be more of the problem than the solution right now. Let's try this again. So it does look like with a finished path, we did get even better results, as Deep Thinker was saying. But what's kind of crazy, though, is if we did do a finishing path all the way around that part, those walls are done. So those should all be at 0 right now. And with those all at 0, it seems like we're still making cuts somewhere where we shouldn't really have any cuts. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on reduce air cutting and see if that helps. Obviously, it's limited us down a little bit. But like I said, is this little piece of material right now is causing our problem, which is probably causing our tool path the other way. So let's go ahead and make an adjustment. Let's say, for example, we're actually going to auto bottom minus 20. That should actually rough everything out that way. And then our stock generation, we no longer have that little island. Again, this is some of the times we're just thinking smarter than we are. And now if we regenerate that adaptive clearing, I'm hoping to get an error that says no toolpath, which finally, after digging into all of this, Deep Thinker, it looks like it is now working back the other way based on that stock recognition, right? Now, I would like to try a few more things here in the meantime. Let's go ahead and give it some more stock. So we're going to go ahead and actually go to my favorite fixed size box for any of you guys that know me. And we're going to go ahead and regenerate those tool paths and see if we can get a step in there. We now do have a lovely step in there. So again, now if we flip this over, right, we have a lovely hat to machine off. And let's see what that hat is going to give us. So as you're seeing, again, because of our maximum step down, it's always going to achieve going to the deepest level possible. But again, we're not going past where we're at currently. Now that reduce air cutting is a big change to our toolpath. So if I turn that off, what we should see is what I like to call waterfalling. And we are seeing that where we're going all the way down to the bottom of the part. So basically everything once we get below that very, very top area is a waste of toolpath time, right? So that's where that reduce air cutting comes in, extremely beneficial. But Deep Thinker, you're right for the most part. I would chalk that up to a win in your case that, hey, if we went in and we actually finish past that before flipping it, pressed machining should actually work much better, which I believe it is. Now, keep in mind, as you guys can see here, when we think about that tiny piece of material for the hat, what is happening is, again, is it's trying to achieve maximum step down first, and then it comes back up, right? So you guys have ever seen my videos, I've talked about whatever your maxing ref step down is, it always goes for that first and then works its way back up. Cool. Any other questions outside of that? I see a lot more people jumping in, jumping out. If you're coming from the Facebook group of CAM users, feel free to throw questions in chat at any time. I'm here to help you guys in any way I can to help cause more solutions than problems at the end of the day. Now, a couple of cool things that I could say here is based on the information that we had, if we had a set of vice jaws in here, and I'm just going to quickly model these up so we can see them. And we're going to throw a rectangle in here. And then from that, let's go ahead and extrude that out. Now, some of you are going to say these are some terrible set of jaws. That's more than okay. What I'm doing is just trying to model up a set of vice jaws holding my part because, again, I see this problem quite a bit when you guys put in tickets to me, is when we start machining back the other way and you're using a fixture, right? So as you guys can see, I'm now calling that my fixture to hold my part, is the tool path itself may or may not actually machine or achieve where it needs to machine, right? So again, as you can see, we're working back down that other way, but what is happening is we will not get closer than whatever our fixture offset is, right? So again, as if my fixture offset is 200, again, we're going to always stay away from that fixture by 200. So something to keep in mind as you guys are doing this. Any other questions outside of that? Feel free to go ahead and throw them in chat. We could always take a look at the old ticket system, make sure nobody's put in any tickets. I'm going to go ahead and shoot off a message to one of my guys. And with that, let's get back over here. So with no other questions, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start doing some random stuff that, again, is, I think this week's thing was really big, was the idea of configurations. Now, I do have 32 gigs of RAM. I'm happy to give away to any of you guys watching this video. However, I think what the challenge is going to be is the best way to do gig and fixture setups. Now, I'm going to leave the freedom to all of you guys, and I will say, I want to see how you guys do a 1 and 2 setup jig and fixture with stock. Maybe you're using configurations. Maybe it's going on a tombstone. I would love to see the different ways to do so. Once you guys design your jig and fixture up, go ahead and send us an email with that info email, and I'll check out what you do. And with that, our winner, of course, we're going to make sure that that sticks of RAM that I have laying around are going to work. If not, we'll buy you a set of RAM. But I'm going to actually go ahead and poke away at something here. Now, I am going to have to fix something that I have in my old school jigs and fixture folder. And let's go ahead and get this pulled up. Now we do have a template here. Give this a second. So for any of you that know, we've already done videos on how to build a jig and fixture, but I think the real fun comes down to is how do you do a two setup scenario, right? So again, is if I go ahead and take my entire assembly and do a copy, paste new. Now, I do need this to go back the other way, but I think one thing a lot of you are going to notice here is we actually have stock coming through on that second setup, which we're not going to need, but I think I'm going to rinse and repeat in a way that makes sense to be able to reuse it. So if we go ahead and do our joint from A to B, and then with that, we want to flip that back over the other way. And then for the sake of this part, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to rotate that 90 degrees as well, just so we can see how the vise sits in different directions. So as you can see, I have two vices in here based on what I'm doing. But what I think you can do is we can do stuff with configurations to make toggling on and toggling off these a lot easier. Now, something else that I think I would do if I was still on a shop floor dealing with this stuff, right, is if we go back, I should have another, I know I have a good old-fashioned DX6 vise in here, right? But let me go ahead and grab this guy that I'm pretty sure is pretty broken, but I think you guys are going to like the system that I go with here to make this happen, right? So again, we now have a DX6 vise drug in. I'm going to get this moved out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and break that link as well. Let's get that link broke. And now we're going to go ahead and get stuff turned on so you guys can see what we're working with. So this vise here was built off the idea, again, of being set up to be used for a second op because of the soft jaws, right? Well, in this case, we have a stock model. Ignore my broken parallels, please, guys. So I may do the same thing once again where, my workflow might be is setting up that part based on aligning it to this stock over here. I just need to make sure that I'm not using that stock later, right? So again, I'm just using that stock as a placeholder. This is getting hideous at first, I understand, but I think you guys are going to see the value here in a sec, right? So once we do our configuration once again, we have configuration 1. Now we can add in parameters at any time, and we can also add in visibility if I remember how. So give me a minute. Again, it's been a hot minute since I've had to do this and dive into it too far, but there is a way, if I remember, on how to trigger visibility inside the configurations menu. So let's see what we can come up with. Again, remember we do have stock height, width, depth. Again, we have a second set of stock if we wanted to control that at the same time, or we could tie these together, of course. Again, our parallel height came through from that DX6. We're going to go ahead and just grab those ones there. And now, if I remember, let's go ahead and go through here real quick. And we should have a visibility that we can go ahead and turn on and turn off. Now, if you guys are watching me struggle out there, curious about it, I believe one of you are going to chime in and tell me how to turn off the visibility before I hopefully remember how to do it. Trying to remember off the top of my head, but I wanted to show you guys this, right? So the idea is when we adjust one stock, right, everything else can adjust and follow suit based on how we've set that up. So again, we're going to do a little more tidy up work here. Again, we have our second vise. We need to get that stock turned off because we don't actually need it. But what I do need to do, again, is tie parameters together. And those parameters are actually going to be stock height 1 is going to be stock width. We're going to go ahead and say stock height, or stock width 1 should be stock height. Stock height is going to be stock height still. And then lastly, stock length will actually be stock, trying to think off the top of my head here, width, if I'm thinking correctly. Now, again, the idea here is if this was built right, everything would auto update based on changing those numbers, right? So again, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get both vices moving. And this is why I want to see your guys' solutions to this. There we go. The vise is starting to move. Yours truly probably just has the wrong data field synced. But the idea is to be able to put both setups all in one file. So I do see some questions coming in. Noah, great to have you. First time making it to the live. Just wanted to say thank you so much. Awesome. I appreciate it, man. Deep Thinker, as a job shop, making fixtures on the fly only as needed. Yep. So 100%. No, I can understand that completely. And what I'm looking for is the fact that, as you guys can see, is if we set up jigs and fixtures properly and we have them kind of all in one file and self-contained and controlled. Now, I'm probably going to build a much more deeper video on this, but the idea is still the same, that when you go into your configurations is having the ability to go in and toggle all that information very quickly, but making it easy so that when you switch over to manufacture and you do your setup, right? So this is going to be setup 1. My fixture is going to be, you know, whatever I have turned on or whatever I have associated, and so forth and so on, so that it works clean and smooth and easy from start to finish. Again, by the ability to toggle on and toggle off, as you guys saw there, my setups, I can go through and make each setup driven by exactly that piece of information, right? So again, we're going to go ahead and say yes here temporarily, but we're going to need to go and give that a part file. So let's go back. We don't want the entire cam data. We want this part assembly here. And as you can see, when I activate my different setups, this is where we're jumping from item to item to item. So again, a little different way to think about it at the end of the day, but I would like to see what you guys come up with. I'm going to dive into it much deeper and make a much cleaner version. I'm just here to plant the seeds so you guys can grow. That's all I'm going to say on it. Any other questions outside of that? Again, we see coming and going here. If you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them in chat. You could also put them up on our chat. You could send us a support email. Doesn't matter. So it looks like somebody is saying my audio is kind of in and out. All right, so we can go ahead and get that adjusted for you guys. That seemed to be a little better for anybody out there. I tend to get excited when I get in here and start working on CAM software. Go ahead and let me know. Is that good? Is that bad? Am I still clipping? Everything okay? Again, let's go ahead and dive into this a little more. Let's see what we can come up with, and let's see if we can't figure out how to set up the ability to actually make visibility configurable. Now, if I remember, there's got to be a way to do it. All good on Jeff's end? That's great. Jeff, great to see you here and that you made it. When do you guys figure this out? Please let me know. I did it like 2 days ago, and I can't remember what that was that I had to do. That is the craziest part about this. There has to be, oh, where is it? It's somewhere. I know it's somewhere. I'm about to Google it. Let's see here. Go Google it. Do the best thing possible. Even the best of us have to do a little Google in it. Wow. All right. Let's see here. All right. Oh, see what they got. I got to get back to you guys here in a second. One sec here. There we go. All right. Configuration mode is on. Configure. Check visibility. Oh, that was very helpful. In the browser, select an object. Configuration mode, click the highlighted object. Outside. Oh. Repeat configuration. No. You guys see it there? Did I miss it? Unisolate. No. Not crazy. That's not it. Back here. Go to the top level to start. Oh. There it is. There it is. There it is. Now I remember. So as you guys can see, we could actually add visibility here. So you could add the ability to turn on suppression for specifically this assembly. So again, as you can see here, is I can go through and I could say, hey, I want to be able to suppress certain things as I work on this. And this is what I was looking for. So again, configuration 1, or we can rename this, right? Setup 1. Could have our stock sizes if you wanted to use stock sizes to control everything. And then we could say setup 1 is only going to be specific objects visible, right? As you can see here, we could say it's just that one assembly that is visible. And with that, we have that defined. So again, as we go through to configuration 2, everything else turned back on. So this is where I think in Deep Thinker's case, it will take a little bit of time to build this out to make it more efficient. But the ability to quickly go in and grab different configurations and have different setups in place might be faster than anything I've seen yet, right? So again, as we could say, this is actually EX6 Vice. Deep Thinker, I'll grab you here in a minute. And there we go. And then the next one will be my dovetail. Right? Again, we just want that certain assembly turned on for dovetail fixture setup 1. Maybe we add another one. That next one is going to be dovetail, if that makes sense. So again, quickly toggling on and toggling off based on configurations as to what we want to use and how we want to set up our. Hey, Elijah made it. Great to see you here. Quick question off topic. Is there a way to have Fusion suggest a safe tool stick out length? No, Deep Thinker, there actually is quite a bit. So when you're in a 3D toolpath, now I recommend that this is in a 3D toolpath, there is an option, turn on shaft and holder, and then in shaft and holder, you can auto detect tool length. So what will happen is it'll pull it out to whatever stick out length with the clearance settings that you have here. So if I was to actually swap tools here real quick, and let's see if I have a little stubby tool that's going to be a terrible time on a part. Now, you know, I'm probably going to get in trouble with how we're doing this because remember, I have fixtures set up and everything. But let's do, you know what? Let's just edit that tool, right? Edit tool. Go ahead and change our stick out. Give her a second to tell me that everything is absolutely wrong now. Nope. And if we select that tool and go ahead and hit OK, you're going to see this run real quick. And then we're going to get this warning. This warning right here is going to tell you that the tool length has been updated from 0.5 to 0.81. Newer. I feel like it's been a hot minute since we've seen you here in chat. Great seeing you from the UK. What time is it over in the UK? Deep Thinker, I hope that answers your question. Again, as you can see, it's pretty straightforward to be able to use that shaft and holder. Again, no, not long, 6. It's only 6. Nice. So using shaft and holder, you have that ability to be able to pull that tool out automatically. Now, keep in mind, shaft and holder is only in the 3D toolpath area. It's not going to show up in 2D, for example. So if I do a 2D contour here, that 2D contour doesn't have shaft and holder or auto detect tool length of any sort. 6 p.m. in the UK. This guy's already started the weekend. Lucky guy. Any other questions outside of that, guys? This is time for you that if you have any questions or if you've encountered any problems all week long inside of Fusion, feel free to throw them in chat. You could also email us directly, and we'd be more than happy to do the best we can to be able to solve that live. Or if you don't want to share your stuff with the public, you can always email us still a ticket with your file, and we're happy to do a private session with you to take a look at what you have going. I'm going to go ahead and jump back to the ticket system here real quick and take a peek. I don't see anything coming in on the ticket system. Curious if any of you all are going to actually be making it down to Houston with us. Let me go ahead and jump around here a little bit. Bureau clock. Yeah, Stuart, I feel that, man. I feel that for sure. You're not going to fly to the US to see me in Texas? Yeah, that hurts my feelings. No, I'm just kidding, man. What other cool stuff do you think we should do today? I know we talking a little bit about configurations. Last week was all about like tool containment and boundary selection. What else do you guys feel that you want to see? You get your autograph? If you send me an email with your address, I will do my best to send you an autograph. So, making pallets with Mighty Bytes, how can you copy a geometry so that you could do multiple instances on one pallet? So, Elijah, we actually did a pretty good video on this. I'm going to go ahead and jump back, and I think I still have stuff pulled up here. So, what was it? You have a Mighty Byte file. Now, a secret to Mighty Bytes, and we did run into a couple of hiccups when I did this on a Workflow Wednesday, but the problem is when we went to design this fixture, we started out with actually a Pitbull template. And what you're seeing here is this template has my stock size, all of my jig and fixture information, and this is what we use to actually go and cut out that part, right? So as you're seeing here is we brought that in. And just to give you an idea on that timeline, we're going to go ahead and scroll back here real quick. I started out by using a joint to place the first one, and then I patterned everything the way I wanted it. And then from there, when we did the combine, now this is the tricky part. On the combine, we did run into a problem because I actually tried to pattern a feature and it didn't like it for some reason. But now I think, looking back and now looking at my file, I think I know what my problem was. So let's go ahead and try to fix it. So we're going to actually go back in time, of course, because Fusion is great like that. And we're going to break this link. We're going to break everything. So we have a pattern in here somewhere. Let's go ahead and see here. You shouldn't have a pattern. Go ahead and break this link one more time. All right. So we're going to have to clean up our timeline and start this whole process. So it wasn't the biggest deal. So it was telling me that there was an issue with that pattern after the fact causing problems. Now we are getting a couple of other issues, but I think we're good here. Oh, I see what happened. Let's go back one more time. I want to break this link, and I only want to do this top component. I want to leave my part linked in the assembly. We're going to say component only. And now, as you can see, I didn't break that joint down here of the part being put into the stock. Now, let's go ahead and cut our part. So again, for those of you that know, we did a combine. Go ahead and turn on that pocket. So as you guys can see, that's what I want to cut. This is what I want, or that's the tool. And then I'm backwards. So the target is this. This is what I want to use to cut. And now we should be able to cut that. Now we have that pocket, and I'm curious if we can get away with a pattern here of a feature. Remember, we did do a combine based on an axis. I think it's going to give it to us this time. So for those of you that don't know, this is crazy because the Workflow Wednesday video I did, we were having the damnedest time trying to pattern this. But let's just do a small pattern to start. And as you're going to see, it did not actually pattern anything, which is kind of funny. So we tried to pattern the feature for cutting, and it did not do it, which is hilarious. So maybe we didn't find the fix, or something else is happening, which there's one way to find out. Let's take a look here. I'd be danged if they're there. They're just, oh, they're not. So something is happening when we do that pattern to create those features. For those of you that don't know, we had this same kind of problem happen. Go ahead and go with an identical. Yep, we're not getting that pattern at all, right? So as you're seeing here is it's not always the case. So when we switch to optimize now, I got lucky for all of you wondering if I'm bullshitting you. So optimize seems to be the selection that did everything very proper. Now this is something on Workflow Wednesday I wanted to show everybody because we created that first one, right? And what we have is that entire assembly is joined in place, but I can actually do duplicate with joints, right? So this is kind of cool when you realize I can duplicate the first one, and then I can place that wherever I want it on my part. Now, keep in mind, this is going to get a little messy because this is a used design that has been abused a little bit. But the idea is when you do that duplicate pattern, now all of my stuff, just so you guys know, should have been coming from this corner, but you could go out and rinse and repeat the same location in this case to create multiple instances, right? So again, keep in mind, this is looking a little messy because when we placed that first one, we went off the corner and inwards, but everything else is replicated from that to make that easy to do. So I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel here. So you should, Elijah, you should use pattern because that pattern move is actually working out quite well for the pockets themselves. Nope. So the pattern is going to be your best friend. Like I said, the only problem I'm having with the pattern technically, and I might be able to swing this a little different, is I'm trying to pattern this entire clamp assembly right now. And the problem with patterning that entire clamp assembly, let's go back and try something else here real quick. Because normally we would also want to combine these additional pieces to cut those areas out, right? So we need to actually say target body is this guy, and we want the dowel pins all in there, and that should be a part of our pattern now. Yep, we have our pattern for all of our dowel pins as well as gone through automatically. Now we do want to make sure that we are keeping our tools in this case so that the dowel pins still stay valuable there. But that would create what you needed and get everything set up, right? We could also, just for anybody at home wondering, you could now pattern, in this case, the component itself. Again, using that same pattern logic that we used this time around, whatever your spacing is, whatever your heights are, so forth and so on. Now, in my case, I'm going to have to get a little closer here. Get them lined up, and away you go, right? Beautiful. As you can see, I've now made every one of those pit bull locations its own go around, and I've done that with patterns. So Elijah, I'm glad that helps you out. And for anybody watching right now, you're probably curious is, yes, it was me when we made that video and we did that pattern. Optimize actually fixed all of our problems with creating the locations. Now, Elijah, you could take it one step further, which is kind of cool, just so you know, is if we go into our parameters table, again, we created that actual pattern, right? So whatever our pattern and our spacing was for the jig, and then you also have the pattern in here somewhere for the pallet, we can go ahead and plug in those numbers and carry them across both patterns so that you don't have to change it in two places, you can change it in one. Now, I did see another question come through. Stuart wants to see a cylinder, chamfer with a 45, and then show me how to use measure to find the angle. So if I had, for example, a cylinder, draw this pretty quick here, and we're going to go ahead and throw a chamfer on there. My question would be is, do you want to measure the distance of the chamfer, Stuart, or do you just want to know what is the chamfer size, right? Do you want the geometry answer for A, B, or C? Do you want to know C? Degrees? You'd want to know degrees. Okay, so there's no good way by default to measure that angle, right? So what you could do is sometimes you can get away with measuring from area to area. Again, we're not getting an angle here. Now, if we had something possibly flat to measure on that radius or on that angle, we could pull it. But what you're thinking is correct, is if I did a split body in this case, based on the origin, as you guys are seeing me go through here and select that origin, go ahead and cancel. Again, we're going to do split body based on the origin. Technically, I can now inspect from this line to this face and get an angle of 135 in this case. So doing the split body works pretty well. And keep in mind, once you split it and get that angle, you could easily go back and turn off or delete that actual split body. Something that you guys may or may not know is the ability to right click and actually go in and suppress feature. So it's still there in your timeline. You just suppressed it temporarily. Well, it's a hard one to sell. Let me just put it to you that way, because at the end of the day, if you're trying to measure the angle on a chamfer specifically, this is where I would tell most people this is where you need a drawing for the part, and making it a drawing will actually allow you to pull that angle. Now, if I'm making this part, I'm using a model to make the part, the model should match the drawing, right? So you would have to do two separate patterns. Yes, Elijah. But this is where it gets a little tricky when we talk about setting that up and doing those jigs and fixtures. Is I did one pattern for the pocket and then a separate pattern for basically my Mighty Bite assembly I brought in. But yeah, going back to Stuart's question is, if we were making this, I'm going to go ahead and save on this. Go ahead and throw this somewhere where I can delete it later, of course. But if I was manufacturing this, same thing before, I'm going to go ahead and hit this with some turning. And then I'm going to go ahead and give it some tool paths, but I'm going to show you guys something. You guys know this, that you could actually copy tool paths across from one to the other. So I'm going to take this entire setup. I'm going to go over here and delete the setup I just made. Paste it in here. And now I have that setup carried over. I redefine my Z-axis. And we got to go ahead and give it a model, which it now is, got to pick the model. And with that, all my tool paths just came through automatically. But as you can see with my roughing strategy and my finishing strategy, it knows that angle, Stuart. So if I went back to design, let's say I change my chamfer to Q distance. What I want now is like a steep angle here. Again, the cam side of things is picking up on that angle. So, and if I go ahead and highlight these and generate, you can now see how that tool path again is following that angle. Any other questions, guys? Feel free to go ahead and answer them in chat. If you guys need some additional help outside of this, feel free to go ahead and reach out. We'd be more than happy to help you outside of this to get you what you guys need. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and check the desk. And I see a couple of emails that have came in, just not for anything for Free Support Friday, guys. We get back over here and make sure there's no other questions. As you guys know, at any time, if you do have questions, you're watching this video over the weekend, I think we're going to start a new format where we chop this down to about an hour. I am warning you guys, in 2 weeks, I'm actually going to be on my way to Texas. So this is the second to last Free Support Friday, unless yours truly brings you live content from the van. But don't forget that if you're in the Texas area, feel free to reach out to us. We're actually doing a free day training. You could sign up for all 3 days. And as we've talked about already, we're actually doubling down now. So due to the amount of registrants, we're actually going to do 2 back-to-back weeks. So you have the 5th, 6th, and 7th. And then we're also now doing the 12th, 13th, and 14th due to the amount of people. Any other questions outside of that, guys? I'm going to go ahead and leave this open. I got to say, I can officially say I have a good amount of regulars. I feel like the same 6 or 7 guys always come in here, and you guys have tons of questions, and I appreciate it. But I also noticed that there's quite a few people that tend to come in here and don't say anything. So I'm curious as to what is stopping some of you from asking questions, curiosities, and software. I'll go ahead and leave you guys with that here for think about. What is it that you guys want to see or you're curious about or possibly missing, right? Jeff with a thumbs up. Precision works. Questions are complicated. Let's hear them. Throw a couple out there, Stuart. Let's see what you got. Be very curious to see. Anybody else have any other questions? Go ahead and get things cleaned up here. Actually going to remove this to a bath. Oh. Find a model with a bunch of holes and put a sketch on its face. Well, I mean, I got a model right here with a million holes on it, right? There you go. And you want a sketch on the face. There we go. What else do you got? And push pull. Go. Stuart, what else you got? Do it. It tends to ghost on the face. Well, so if you have a sketch here, right? That is what you're push pulling. You're not push pulling the body. That makes sense. So because you put a sketch down and then you push pulled the sketch, which I'm going to admit to you guys, I didn't know you could push pull a sketch. That's news to me, where if I had to push pull that for some reason, I would have just gone straight off that face, right? And pulled that out. Now, here's what's really crazy is this is quite funny, but as you can see, if I do a push pull off the face, I get the offset type automatic, new offset, again, modifying existing, all this information. But as you saw there with what we did with a sketch and a push pull, actually night and day different results. So this is something new. I didn't know that that was a thing, that if you go in and push pull a sketch, right? What you're seeing is it's not a push pull. It's actually turning itself into an extrude, because you're extruding that sketch at the end of the day. So it's not actually a push pull. It's an extrude, which is kind of interesting how that goes through in Fusion's world. Elijah, you want to send it over? I'm happy to pull it out and take a look, man. Anybody else have any other questions they want to chime in with? I know I said we're going to probably cut this off at the hour. I'm happy to keep going a little bit longer if you guys have any questions. Go ahead and clean up my workspace here a little bit. Any other questions outside of that? We're here for you guys. Let me get my OBS pulled back up. Bill, going to send you a picture. All right, I'll pause the breaks here real quick. I'll wait a few more moments. Gives me a good chance to get you guys with the whole, hey, you guys can help support this channel at any time. If you guys like this content, feel free to hit the like, subscribe, and share button. We have tons of other content, as you guys may know, on our YouTube channel. We've also upped the ante because I think you guys have bought me enough beer to be good for the year. I don't know how, but with that said, you guys can now buy me steaks if you want. A steak and a beer, really good option if you're a big spender like that. So let me go ahead and jump back here. All right, so soft jaw looking geometry. So All right, I'm waiting. All right, so Jeff's going to send a photo. Jeff, were you? All right, I see it here. That is awesome. So you're running 4 parts out of a bar, right? So for you guys to know, let me see the best way to do this. Let me get this downloaded and pull. Jeff, this is yours, correct? Can you send a cake? Maybe I should put an option on there for dessert. Bad news is, guys, carnivore diet, man, MS has got me pinned down pretty good. So I've only eaten animals and animal products over here. So in the case of this here, Jeff, it looks like you're running 4 out of a bar. Now, there is a lot of ways you could fixture these. And like you said, soft jaws might work quite well. Again, you do have the option to do things with mighty bites as well. I guess it really comes down to your end goal and if you want to load them as 4 back into the machine. Now, I have seen this in the past. This is something I would warn a lot of you about if you were to do something with soft jaws, right? Is when you relieve a lot of material around parts like this, it tends to bow the actual material. So if you flip this and put it in like a DX6 vise, which of course I closed out, let's get that pulled back up, is your clamping on a DX6 vise is horizontal. So with that bow in the part and horizontal clamping, sometimes even when you tap it down, it doesn't quite work, right? Again, as you guys can see here, is if we put those parts in here and held them, you may possibly have 1 or 2 that stick out. Now, I've also seen it where one of those parts gets ejected, right? So on something like what he had there, again, I can pull that back up here, give me a sec to jump back over. There we go. So on something like this, it might actually have been a little bit wiser to rotate these so the flats are all aligned and then set them up with a mighty bite type system, because usually mighty bites and fixturing of that such are going to clamp against and pull downward, right? Go ahead and get that extra photo closed out. There we go. But again, based on how many you have to run makes all the difference, of course. Jeff, it's a little hard to say even what the back side of this part looks like, because again, I'm not saying the way you did it is wrong, but had we done the hex size first, right, we could actually use that hex side and then do the inner groove and then all the through holes back the opposite way. So again, every part is different. The way you think about doing it and the way you achieve it, night and day different results, right? Now, keep in mind, you could, if you did do this front side first, you could always get a pallet to hold on to the outside to keep it on center as well. Stuart, great point. Piece of copper shim always helps. I do notice, though, Stuart, in that case, when you start to use copper shims on things, is your part starts to shift. So unless you're probing every single one, you could get in some trouble. Cool. Any other questions outside of that, guys? Guys and gals, I should say. We go ahead, jump back over, make sure we don't have anything here. Awesome. Make sure the ticket system doesn't have anything. Well, guys, with that, I think we're cutting this short. I do like the idea of 1 hour. It seems like there's a lot more engagement in 1 hour versus the hour-and-a-half mark where we tend to lose you. Now, with that said, if you guys do have more questions after the fact, use our email down below. Send us an email with any information about your problem, and we're more than happy to help you anytime that we can. With that said, I need to make a promo banner. Fusion is on sale right now, 30% off. You guys can buy direct from us and help our business if you're in North America. We're also matching that with 30% off all of our online training and support packages as well. You can see that all on our website down below. And as you guys know, it's not what you know, who you know. And you guys know Fusion Phil over here at jitcadcam. We're here to help you, whether it be Fusion, Part Maker, Power Mill, or even Feature Cam, as you guys are seeing our new content roll out. So feel free to reach out to us with your problems and have a great rest of your weekend.